most of them, basically, somebody sits in front of you with a gavel and puts you to sleep with Robert's Rules of Order. And then you figured, well, that's not gonna help us, we're not gonna get any ideas there. Maybe we can look at their magazine and get some better ideas for the award-winning Fiero Focus magazine. Well, not so much there either. Because number one, the quality is not as nice. If you had them both in your hand, you immediately look at the Focus and think, this is a much nicer magazine. Then you open it up and start looking at the content, and they're not that much better there either. Most of it is a recap of the meeting, so presumably if you didn't get enough sleep at the meeting, you could have it put you to sleep on the couch. So, yeah, thanks to our board members like Jim that look for that stuff, and thanks for everybody that we have such a great club, board members and members alike. Okay, this was our trip to Pontiac for our spring cruise. It was the last event that I planned as one of the event people on the board before I moved over to secretary. And I'd like to say that I made this a success. It wasn't that way at all. There's some great people in Pontiac. All I did was pick up the phone and call Tim Dye at the museum and said, hey, we'd like to. And before I'd even finished, he said, okay, done. And I called up the city and I'd say, hey, we'd like to. And before I'd even finished, they said, done. So all this great stuff got planned. And all I had to do was call the people down there and say, hey, we'd like to come your way. And it came out to be just fantastic. Well, the first thing Tim did was decide, hey, we'll just make this into a Fiero Day. So it turned into not only Northern Illinois Fiero Club event, but a whole Midwest Fiero Club event as well. So there were people that came from Wisconsin and Indiana and Iowa, all over the place. I don't know if you have anybody from Michigan, but we had people coming from all over. Our club started at Naperville. We met at a restaurant that wasn't open yet, just to have a place to rendezvous. I don't know what we had quite, and there were some people that joined the chain. By the time we got there, I think we had like 15 cars.
The
Clickers support.
That was me, that was not you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not even getting the laser beam, so I think the batteries are dead.
Well, just wait when you want to change.
Sure. Okay, so, yeah, we all met in Naperville. Here's Jim passing out directions and whatnot, telling everybody where we're off to. Okay, next. And then once we figured out where we were going, we hit the road. Next. And eventually we cruised down Route 66 and we ended up in Pontiac, which, if you've never been there, follows the same layout that hundreds of towns in the Midwest, all the way from Ohio to Iowa, where you got the county building right in the middle of the square and all the roads are square running around it. The city blocked off one whole side of that square for us, opposite the museum. So we had all that parking safe for us by the time we got down there. There were some other people that were already there before us, most notably the Iowa contingent. First thing we did was head off to lunch. Because another one of those things, I just called up the city and said, hey, we want to have lunch. Okay, done. We took care of the reservations and everything. In this particular picture there, a girl from the city's talking to us. They gave us a nice package of stuff and brochures and things to do in the city, postcards, nice little Route 66 pen. Last time we were there, they gave us a pin commemorating one of their bridges. So just a great town to go visit. And the big reason for planning the trip at this point in time was the first time that the Pontiac Museum has had a display dedicated strictly to the Fiero. And our club made it in there as well. We've got the 20th Fiero coming up and on the horizon. And here he managed to get a hold of somehow and put in a display the poster Mike made for the 10th Fiero a decade ago. after we finished lunch, Tim arranged a tour of several barns. I think there was like 4 barns in the area, held by private collectors, stuffed full of cars. City donated their trolley bus to haul us around from one barn to the next, barn to the next.
That would have been a different trip.
Yeah.
Rick, is that the same shirt?
No. This is Indianapolis 500.
This is Tim Dye, the director of the Pontiac Open Museum. One of the first things he showed us was all the behind the scenes of the museum, where they do the work on their cars. They've got some restorations in progress. They've got an airbrush artist that does work for them. A lot of great stuff that the general public doesn't get to see when they go down there. And like I said, they have barns. This was actually a place that was held grain back in the day, but now it holds cars and all kinds of cars. The Fiero was well represented too. There must have been a dozen of them at least sprinkled between the barns that we went to. I don't know if any of them were particularly rare. And there was one that Fred looked at and said, "Oh, those wheels are getting really hard to come by." And if they're hard for Fred to get his hands on, they must be almost impossible for us mere mortals to get our hands on. But stuff that was in here, I mean, it went from like a Jaguar to a Stanley Steamer, the car, not the carpet cleaner. And it went from stuff that was really one of a kind, and like, I never knew they made that, to why are they saving that? But you never know what's going to be important to somebody, so. And you never knew what was there. There was at least 4 airplanes taken apart and stuck in the corner of the first barn that we were in. We finished up, went back to the museum. Besides all the awesome memorabilia that the museum has on hand, this guy showed up with a lot of his collection too, and we're showing that off. And another lucky break is the day we picked to do this. We didn't plan it that way, but the day we picked to do this was the first night of the first City of Pontiac Cruise Night, which is a really big cruise night for the area and typically draws hundreds of cars. There was a couple hundred that night. We ran it as we're going down as a group, but you can go back whenever you want. I think at least a dozen Fiero cars stayed, which was good. The event is normally an event that they charge for, but the City of Pontiac waived that fee for all the Fiero owners that day. And there was a little bit of everything at that show as well. And obviously, since we were so far from home, stuff that we don't normally get to see. There's a nice shot of the city building in the background with all the Fieros. Yeah, you don't see many of those at car show, period. But that one was really nice. And like I said, there was just all kinds of everything. I mean, who doesn't like a car with a massive blower sticking out of it? And this car was gorgeous. This stuff was overdone about 30 seconds after the car came out with it. This picture doesn't do this car justice, but it was like the perfect car to do this on because it's got so many different surfaces facing so many different directions. It was like a diamond or something. It was just gorgeous. Another vet that was just immaculate and all custom. Stuff that you don't buy off this shelf all the way down to, we called the car copper topless, and you had that milled into the steering wheel. Just an absolute work of art. And then there was the other side of the show. Not sure why nobody's done this with a Fiero yet. And these guys usually don't get the credit they deserve. To get this truck to look like this guy probably put more effort into this than the guy with the DuPont color changing paint. All he had to do was get it painted. This guy put all kinds of effort into getting this car to look, or this truck to look just like it did. Another one that was just immaculate, kind of a modern idea of somebody's version of a Woody, which was absolutely beautiful down to the machined wooden taillights. Another, I'm not sure what it was, but it was gorgeous Art Deco. It was a Pontiac.
That's backer.
3 rows of seats, and that's actually kind of purple. It's not showing right on the projector exactly, but it's a nice shade of purple in real life. And it all wrapped up at the towards the end of the show. They let everybody that wanted to do laps around the town square. So it was one of the Fieros completing their lap. It was a great trip. I'm sure everybody that was there thought it was. Anybody that missed it, you missed a good one. Have to come next time. That's all I've got for today. Any questions? Okay, we'll move on to the next one.
Very good, it has not. Good. Do we know that Fiero's actually went on the Hot Rod Power Tour last year? Okay, then I did a horrible job as an activity director because we had Fiero's on the Power Tour last year. So, for those of you that don't know what the Power Tour is, or may want to refresh you what the Power Tour is, it essentially it's 7 cities in 7 days. It's a rolling cruise night. You see all kinds of cars on it, as you see, and literally it's drive from place, have a car show, drive to the next place, have a car show. This past year, it kind of cruised through our area, so we decided that we should participate as Fieros. It started in North Carolina, then went up to, I think, Knoxville, Norwalk, Ohio, Crown Point, Indiana, Bettendorf, Iowa, and then ended up at the Chula Vista in Wisconsin, our favorite resort. So we decided, as N.I.F.E, we kind of jumped in at Crown Point. So this was Wednesday at Crown Point. We met at Portillo's there, and there's actually 4 Fieros in that picture. I didn't press any buttons.
Sorry.
No. Okay. There's actually 4 Fieros in the picture. You'll see right up here is the 4th Fiero. Pulling out. I did not actually notice that picture, that Fiero was in the picture until last night when I was looking over these pictures. So we met for lunch. You can see there's a little bit of rain on my Fiero here. It did rain a little bit, and I think that kind of kept some of the Fiero attendance down. I know there were some people that were planning on coming down from Chicago, but we met for lunch, and then we went to the Crown Point Fairgrounds. Crown Point Fairgrounds is kind of a nice venue. We had just kind of everyone parked around the area. There was a lot of trees, and the rain kind of held off during the day. That's myself and Scott Campbell. That's my Fiero there, and that's Scott Campbell's Fiero. Scott has actually done the full power tour a few times in his Fiero, and I think he's also done it with his dad and some other cars. So Scott's really our power tour veteran, and he helped us plan a lot of the power tour. The other 2 guys in the picture there, or 3 guys in the picture there, did not have a Fiero in the show. They actually parked over in spectator parking because they were just going to do this one stop. So. Another picture here. Fieros were very well received. There were not a lot of Fieros on the power tour, but there were a few of us. Yeah, this one seems a little upside down here, but you can see there's all kinds of cars on the power tour. People actually drive these cars, which is kind of nice. It's not like the car show where they get off the trailer or the guy drives it 3 blocks from the house. People actually drive these cars. So you'll see, I mean, you don't see a lot of Avantis on the road. The neat thing about the power tour is everywhere you drive around the whole town, all you're seeing is classic cars, muscle cars, everything. It's like you get into a traffic jam of classic cars, which is kind of a neat thing. So we walked around the fairgrounds. You can see just a little bit of everything, all different kinds of cars. Even though I talked to the owner of this car, I think he did the full power tour, so he drove this from North Carolina all the way through to Wisconsin Dells. I believe the guy was from Kansas, and then he had to drive it back down to Kansas. So, everyone loves their cars. I saw this car a lot on the power tour because obviously it's easy to spot. And I actually saw it pulled over by the side of the road between Davenport and the Dells, so I'm not sure if it actually made it all the way to the Dells. I don't think I saw it there. So. Nice wagon.
66.
And of course, one of the first things you do when you get to the power tour is you get your bag of swag, which then has the power tour sticker on it. You've got to put your power tour sticker on it. So that's the power tour sticker I put on the car, and then sold the car. So I got two of them, so I still have one that I put on the car. And this, we all know, is Bob Holtz's car. He actually, I believe, was the only Fiero that did the full power tour this year. Some other Fieros have done it. But Bob loves to drive his car. I think he's got well over 300,000 miles on that car, and he gets around a lot. And you can see he's managed to keep the car looking pretty nice. So, and this car came down from Michigan. Did not get a chance to talk to the owner. I never did find him, but it was down from Michigan. So, kind of a neat car. It had a 4.9 in the back. And after we got left Crown Point, after we left the fairgrounds, Zach, one of the guys, and I went out to dinner and then went back to my hotel. And the hotel parking lots is just, every hotel in the area is completely booked with power tour. The hotel parking lot itself is a car show. And then after dinner, Will Hammond from Kansas came and met us. So this is him arriving at the hotel parking lot. And he's got a nice little engine in his car. Maybe makes a little horsepower. And then it was off the next day. So from Crown Point, we were going to Bettendorf, Iowa. So you think that would be just a nice drive. Maybe you take Route 30, I mean, you can take Expressway or whatever. But Power Tour, in their commercial wisdom, had us going up to Heights Automotive up in Lake Zurich. So rather than just take a nice leisurely drive, they actually had us going up 294 and stuff during rush hour. So we kind of took a little other route. We tried to kind of avoid some of that traffic, but it was one of the things I didn't like about Power Tour was kind of that. But I mean, you know, I'm sure that Heights Automotive paid a lot of money to get all the Power Tour people up there, and that's what pays for the Power Tour. So you got to kind of take the commercial side of it as well. And after we met up with another group of people then in Lake Zurich after the Heights Automotive to kind of regroup the Fieros, and then we were going to head over to Iowa. So this is, John was waiting for us there. He unfortunately could not go on the rest of the Power Tour with us because he had some family emergency come up, but he was there to meet us and see us off anyway. We were at the Sonic, so this is our motley crew. Cars there, but one of the cars was missing that was supposed to meet us there. Vince Wickline was supposed to meet us there, but he wasn't there yet, so we called him. And unfortunately, when we called Vince, he said, well, I guess what, I lost all my coolant. He had blown the coolant line. So being, you know, good Fiero people we are, we said, okay, give us your location. I happen to have 2 jugs of coolant with me because I'm kind of paranoid and carry all that stuff with me when I go on a trip. So we went over there and we refilled them. One, I think, tip from Vince is make sure you have a funnel that's good for filling up a radiator when you're on the road. We had, you know, just the little kind of oil funnels, and they were kind of a pain to get the radiator filled up. But Scott and Vince got it filled up, and then we were on our way. Now, I don't have a lot of pictures of the rest of that day's drive, so this is all the way down to Thursday night. And Thursday we went to, obviously, Bettendorf, Iowa, which is kind of close to a friend of ours that lives in the area. So after we went to dinner, we went to a nice dinner at a nice, I think, Heritage Grove restaurant. Had a nice dinner, Heritage Grove Family Restaurant or something like that, had a nice dinner. And then we stopped by Fred's house. And we had a nice time chit-chatting. I think they rebuilt Scott's headlight motor, or changed the gears out of Scott's headlights, and did a few other maintenance items on the cars, everything ready for the next day. This is the hotel parking lot. I talked to you about the hotel parking lot. So this was the view from my hotel room. I haven't seen a lot of T-top Monte Carlos lately, but there's just a lot of nice cars in the parking lot. Nice Pinto wagon there. There's another one, old trucks with a little patina. And again, this was just one hotel parking lot, and all the hotels were booked up. Total, I think there was over 5,000 cars participated in the show. I think like 2,000 or 3,000 of those actually did the full power tour. So there's Vince's car parked amongst some cars. And here we are touring, and notice you see like all the little towns that you go through, especially in Northern Illinois, and then especially going up into Wisconsin. All the little towns had a little welcome power tour. There were people sitting out with lawn chairs, watching all the cars go by. There was a town in Illinois, and I'm not quite sure how it worked, but there was a guy passing out beer.
Where were the cops?
Yeah, what? You know, I'm sure just for the passengers. I mean, you know, he was on the passenger side. So this is my iPass, which, interesting story about that. Not too long after this, we had come up to a T intersection, and Vince in front of me turned off, and he's got a nice V8 in there, so he really got on it after the turn. And the guys in the chairs and stuff were like screaming and yelling, you know, yay, you know, and stuff. So I'm like, well, I'm going to be cool too. I got a 3800 this thing, I'm going to be cool. So we're turning the corner, and I turn the corner, and I just get on it, but I wasn't quite straightened out, so I kind of fishtailed a little bit, and then iPass just flew right out the window, never saw it again. So that's what I get for trying to be cool. But here we are, stopped at a gas station along the way. You can see we were running with not just Fieros. We ran with those YouTube Buick T-types a lot. There were some people from St. Louis that Scott knew. And this is kind of our group of cars here that we were kind of running with. You can see they're back working on Vince's car again. He had to, the reason why he blew out all this coolant was his fan wasn't coming on, so he was there. I think he was hardwiring his fan at that point, so we could get on the road. This picture is it's related to Power Tour, but it's also related to the Dells Run. For those of you that remember, have been to Dells Run, and you know that little restaurant we used to eat at on Fridays, where we get the fish fries. Well, this is it. It burned down last spring, and so I happened to be walking across there, not to be sure where it used to be. Looks much smaller when it's laid out like that. It looks a lot bigger when you're actually in. But anyway, so then we made it up to Wisconsin Dells. You were actually, for those of you that have been to the Chula for the Dells Run, we were actually out on the golf course, just spread out all over the golf course. So we didn't have to worry about golf balls hitting our cars because there were no golfers that day. A lot of the manufacturer booths had a lot of cool cars there. Mario Andretti there. And here you kind of see, this was fairly early before it really filled in, because we managed to get there fairly early. There were just cars lined up and down the fairways. Here you see some of our Fieros. Kind of the nice thing about Dells that really made this a great day is all the Fieros really stuck together. So we had 6 or 7 Fieros there. We were the only really group of cars that all stuck together. Yeah, there were a lot more Corvettes there, there were a lot more whatever there, but they weren't all hanging out together and staying together as a group. It actually made a nice statement. We had a lot of different kind of Fieros, from 4-cylinder to V8s, 3800. So we had a lot of people coming up, checking them out, talking to us. It was really a good event. Nice orange Tornado here. You can see they bring everything on the Power Tour, from new to old. A lot of newer vets on the Power Tour. Does anyone have any questions about the Power Tour? Anyone ever thought about doing it?
Sorry, have you heard the planned route yet for next year?
Nothing is out yet. There is some rumors going on, and the company that ran Power Tour for Hot Rod Magazine Family Events, they're gone. They're not going to be running it anymore. There was a lot of issues with getting in and out of the venues that got blamed on Family Events, probably rightfully so. For those of you that have been to the Chula, you know there's 3 or 4 pretty good entrances into the Chula. They chose to just use one entrance into the Chula for all the cars and all the spectators. People were waiting 2.5 hours to get in to go park. We were smart enough, and we took River Road out through downtown, and we were there from getting off the expressway to getting to parking. We were like 20 minutes. Other people were waiting and overheating, and you know, a lot of these old muscle cars don't really do well in stop and go. So Family Events is gone. So it has not been announced yet. Traditionally, the Power Tour starts where it ends. So traditionally, the Power Tour would start in the Dells. That's kind of all we know. that could be out the window too, we don't know. I actually already have my reservations made for the Dells, so I'm banking on that, but I've got refundable reservations. So.
What's the cost?
The power tour itself, I think, is only like 60, 70 bucks to register for the power tour, and that gets you your bag of swag, and you can go park in the show. Obviously, there's a lot of other costs because you've got to pay for your hotel and your gas and all that stuff. The official hotels are usually, 150 bucks a night, but you can usually find, like I said, every hotel in the area becomes a power tour hotel. So, if you book kind of early and you look for some of the, cut rate hotels, you can get by for, 80 bucks a night or room with someone and that kind of stuff. So, so it's not cheap, but it's also not super expensive. This is a neat little Volkswagen. I think I got another picture of the front end there. He actually did the full power tour, and when you see another picture and you look at the seats, he's got like metal sign seats, and stuff. I don't know how he did the full power tour with that thing. I think I got another picture of him with that. But here's the Fieros again. There's the Volkswagen behind us there. There's Shannon came down and met us at the Dells from Minnesota, and Jason met us over in Iowa, so it was nice to see them again. Here's some of us having some fun. That's Scott and Jason and Shannon from Minnesota. And they are taking pictures of the picture taker. This is a nice picture on the hill where you can see all the Fieros together. Power tour was a lot of fun. I mean, I did not personally have any issues with my car except one. But you did see cars by the side of the road occasionally. And the nice thing when you do power tour, you don't want to do it by yourself. You want to do it with a group of people that you know. And you do stop with people and you help people out. The only issue I personally had was when we got here, I went, because I had to then go register at the hotel, so I had to lug everything over there, so I locked my car, which was, probably didn't need to. But when I came back and went to unlock my car, my passenger door would not unlock, or my driver door would not unlock. And I looked and the lock cylinder had actually fallen in the door a little bit. And the problem was, even opening it from the inside, it wouldn't open. So I actually got to climb in and out my window for half a day. Eventually we played with it, and Jason Foley actually was able to play with it and stuff. We eventually got it so it would unlock. So, but I got to climb in and out and play Dukes of Hazzard for half a day. And obviously we talked about Vince's issues that he had with that. The only other issue we had was there was a 72 Grand Am, white Grand Am that was, I don't think it's pictured in this picture, but it was pictured in one of the earlier pictures, that was running with us, and he was behind me, and all of a sudden he wasn't behind me, so I slowed up and saw that he was pulled over back there, so I pulled over and went back, and his steering column started smoking.
Just a quick question on the streaming. I got commercials now. Is that?
What? Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
I guess that's what it is.
Okay.
But so anyway, so that's so smoke started billowing out of the steering column. So we pulled over. The smoke kind of dissipated. Everything in the steering column was working. So all the Fieros had fire extinguishers. He did not have a fire extinguisher. All the Fiero guys had fire extinguishers with them. So we all came over and handed him a fire extinguisher and said, here, we went ahead and ran the rest of the way, and he was fine, but he had a fire extinguisher with him for the rest of the trip. It was just kind of funny that all the Fiero owners had fire extinguishers with them for this trip. All right, here's the front end of that Volkswagen. And you can see, if you look inside the interior, you see that's just like a metal sign. It's a seat. And,
That's a Volkswagen?
Yep.
It was.
Yeah, I don't know what it is now. So yeah. Yep. After the show at the Dells, we all went out to dinner at a nice little place in downtown Dells. Again, sticking together is the Fiero guys. Had a nice dinner, and then that was it. Then I did managed to get Mario's autograph as well. So that was the power tour. Any more questions about the power tour?
Do they have a website?
It's Hot Rod Magazine sponsors it. Right now, because they're transitioning from family events to not family events, it's Hot Rod Magazine is the website. So you go to hotrod.com. They don't have a lot of information out about it because Hot Rod Magazine, as we know, have gone through a lot of transitions. They got rid of, I mean, they're published by, what, 10 something, I forget the name of the company, like the Entertainment Network.
The Enthusiast Network.
Yeah, the Enthusiast Network, that's it. They're going through a lot of changes right now, so their website was just recently overhauled, and a lot of the links aren't working still and stuff. But if you look at just the Hot Rod Magazine website, the information should be coming out, I would think, by January in terms of the actual locations. So, any other questions?
Yeah, just if anybody's really serious about doing this, Jeff would be a good one to contact, but then also Scott Campbell. For some reason, he always gets a heads up on things before they're even published. So I think he booked his hotels months in advance before they were even letting people know where the power tour was going. So
Yeah, Scott's got his hotels booked for the Dells, and I got my hotel booked for the Dells. So. Actually, I have plenty of rooms. I've got a suite, 2 bedrooms, sleep 6 people. I got it for like $90 because I booked this far in advance. So if anyone wants to crash with me, you know, I've got room. So anything else on the power tour? Okay.
Bartermeyer, Fiero guy, and Jim wanted to open up my presentation. Do you have any questions for me? Mr. Jones.
I have a question. Recently on Pennox, there was been some discussion on the PPG pace cars again, which is a good topic to discuss.
Okay.
But they were speculating that, hey, maybe there's still 1 or 2 of those other unfound ones out there. What's your opinion?
Here's
on
what
that?
I'm at with that. The blue ones in Davenport, the red turbo cars in Davenport, the yellow ones in Davenport. See them every day. The red Pearl car, there was a crush order executed on it specifically by the gentleman who donated it to the school. This gentleman who worked for PPG, he had all the PPG pace cars donated at one point, which was hundreds of them. He gave me the addresses and the names of the other 2 schools where the green car was donated and the pearl white car was donated. I've chased both of those cars to exhaustion and not found them. The green car went to Walled Lake College, or vocational school in Walled Lake, Michigan. They traced it through the 3 or 4 schools that preceded it. Finally got to the scrap yard that it supposedly went to, and that scrap yard no longer exists. So, dead end there. The pearl white car, none of the program that vocational school is involved in exists at all. Completely gone. So, you run the risk that there's a possibility that the green car and the pearl white car are stuck in some guy's garage, hidden under a cover. We could only hope. But at this point, they haven't surfaced. We never know. But to the best of my knowledge, to the best of my research, those 2 cars are gone. But who knows? Like I said, it would be a blessing if they are stuffed away and they come out. It would be awesome to see them. Anything else?
how many do you have in your collection now?
Number
Historical
Number
ones.
19 came about in October 4th. That is it right there. That appears to be a innocent little 88 GT, like everybody has. But this car is one of those prototype cars that has no title, never had an MSO written on it from General Motors, and cannot be titled or licensed or driven on public roads. Now what happened with this car is it is a pilot built car, and what that means is the Pontiac Fiero plant number 17, they stopped production in March of 1987 and did pilot builds on the 1988 model year. So according to my records, 31 cars were built in March of 1987. And I kind of get the speculation, there's always been the rumors that there was a couple of red 87 GTs built. And I think that rumor stems somewhat from this pilot build. Because this is a bright red 88 pilot build car, built from 87. what happened was the blue GTs that everybody loves, they halted production on the blue GTs, so everything that was built before the second week of March of '87. And they halted blue GT production, or blue Fiero production, to build the pilot cars. So basically what they did is they cleaned out all the tooling for the current run model year, brought in the '88 tooling. They did a practice production run to produce the next amount of cars. As the day progressed, they got 31 cars built on the pilot build. If they did 32, they would have did that. But with this build, they did 31. And they took these cars, immediately shipped them to the tech center and evaluated them for the build quality, build issues, anything that would come about that would cause defects that would be a customer unsatisfaction. After that point, they were shipped up to Milford Proving Grounds and just let loose on them. Being that the '88 was an all-new suspension and had new mechanicals, and the '88 was an emissions year, they did everything they tested. And this car is covered with test certification stickers. All the fasteners have yellow marks on them from torque checks and various inspections that were made throughout the use of Milford. This car was run so hard that it was currently sitting on the steel belts and the tires. So they really used them. But this is VIN number 25 out of the 31. So it was very, very low production. It still carries an 88 VIN number that was built in March of '87.
Does it have a power steering?
Yes, this car was built with factory power steering. The RPO codes on the SPI, the service parts indicator or identification sticker, which is on the left wheel well. This car has some unique RPO codes. One is W02, which indicates pilot built vehicle. And that has W04, which dictates cannot be sold outside of General Motors, which is the first time I've seen those two RPO codes on a sticker. The other interesting RPO code that I need to research further and find more information on is there's an XRF code on it. Traditionally in General Motors, XRF indicates special order front axle pertaining to large trucks. And I'm getting to think that XRF is what indicates the factory power steering. In the past, we've always been looking for the N41. I think I'm right on that. RPO code to indicate factory power steering, because there's always those rumors that there was a handful of 88s that made it out of the plant with factory power steering on it that went to the public, later recalled and taken off. At this point, we have never ever found a car that had the RPO codes on the sticker that indicated that it had power steering in the car. The best indication we have right now, there was a handful that were built for testing before they were released to the public, but I don't think those cars ever made it out of General Motors. They were just tested and scrapped. So that makes it unique in that fashion. So this has a full factory 88 power steering on it, front harness, and everything associated with it. Naturally, it doesn't work because it's sat so long. It was all there and intact. The most unique thing that attracted me to this car is it's got a full 90 Fiero dash in it. Ooh, wow. It has the gauge cluster, which was later used on the 93 Firebird. It has the center console that matches the 90 Fiero and the General Motors Heritage Center collection. The unique thing about this car is it has a glove box. And it is a unique glove box. Instead of the traditional door that opens up this way, it clamshells open towards the passenger. It actually has a cup holder.
Yay!
But as far as useful space in it, I don't know how it would work. I mean, it's only about, maybe 3 or 4 inches deep. And it clamshells in half, so it's 6 inches tall, so I don't know. I'm not sure if this was an actual production piece or was it a proposal. But I do know that the gauge cluster and the instrument pod and the center console HVAC control surround was full production. The other questions that come up with this car is looking at the installation of the dash. It looks like a factory installation. It's got stickers on it that came down the assembly line. I raised the question if this would have been our '89 Fiero. Because the '90s weren't ready with the new body. But that gauge cluster was fully functional and ready to go for the '88 model year. So I'm almost wondering if they're going to put that dash in the '89 Fiero. So there's another research project I'm writing to see if I can find it.
Hey, Fred,
Yes.
looking at that cluster on that dash, do you think the next step would have been incorporating the vents into that as well to make it a full kind of?
Hold your horses, I got no pictures. Yeah, this particular dash design they would have used through '91. That was the intention. So the 2 or 3 year run of that dash cluster, which is an improvement. The only thing that I see with it is it kind of clashes with the dash that was in the car from the beginning, from 1984. You know, the rounded gauge pod kind of match the square edges of the old dash, but they were progressive. Under the conditions this car was built, that's pretty good. But in the long run, they repurposed that dash cluster and used it in the 5th gen Firebird. So when you look at a '93 to '95 Firebird, the gauge cluster is identical. We'll buy them all day long today. But unfortunately, the dash of the Firebird is different. So it doesn't. Any more questions? Go ahead.
If they had continued making the car, what engines would they have been putting in it, you know?
And I know for sure, '89 model year when it came with the 3.1, they would have went to the all electronic control, the electronic EGR, you would have the upgraded IAC, the upgraded nav sensors. Same thing that would have came out on any other GM product in 1989. Some of the other vehicles like the Cavaliers and Open Wheels Buicks got that technology. And the biggest thing is we would have lost the distributor and distributorless ignition in 1989. The intake was redesigned. It looked similar to our V6 intakes, only the throttle body was of a different design. It actually had an oval inlet to it instead of round, with the Venturi effect, kind of a dual Venturi effect coming through it with the throttle body. I know where one of those engines are, and I've been trying to unblue in the face to get it from the guy that knows what he has. And he's toying with it. There were '89 Fiero engines in the plant, and that's where this engine came from. In fact, they had to build a vocational school in Waterford. He was lucky enough to be at the right place at the right time to grab one when they scrapped the other dozen that they had. I was hoping this car had one in it, but it has the socket drivetrain, so blocked out there. I would have been ecstatic if it would have had one, but unfortunately.
So why can't this be licensed for the road?
Number one, it never had a manufacturer's state of origin written on the car. As far as the DOT is concerned, a car is not a car until that certification is assigned to the car. That is basically telling the DOT that this vehicle conforms to all current EPA and NHSTA standards. So, if I would take that VIN number to the DOT, they'd say this car never existed. We're not going to title something that never existed. We're making it up. And that is why a lot of my cars don't have titles on them. It's because they never had the MSO written on them. All of the PPG GTP cars were originally 85 GT pilot cars. So they never had an MSO written on them. So this business, being that it has a VIN tag on the dash, you can take that to any state. You think you're gonna get a title, but you're not, because they're gonna look up the federal DOT records on it, and they're gonna show there's no record, and they're gonna see you later. And unfortunately, that's the way of the world with these cars. If the car was titled at any point, and you don't have the title, and just a VIN number, that's a different story. But with these cars, no less.
Is it possible that ever get, you know,
I'm aware of. Like I said, the federal DOT has a record. And if there was no MSO written on the car, and when you buy a new car, it comes with the MSO in the dealership package. I always get a copy of it when I buy a new car. And when they sell the car, the dealer signs it off and sends it back to the DOT in Washington.
It's MSO.
It's a manufacturer state of origin. Looks like a bank certificate. It's an official certificate. Unfortunately, I don't have one with me. But it is the document that states this vehicle is available for public consumption and meets all requirements. The highway commission. So,
you ever plans to put a V8 in the Fiero?
Have you ever heard of a turbocharged prototype?
yes,
So it did exist.
yes. There's a fleet of about 25 of them. That was going to be a model year 1985 option. This is a legal department got a hold of it and said, you can't sell a Fiero to the public that goes 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds. That's too fast. So some of the proposals were you had to go to a professional driving school and have a certification and a professional license to own one. And GM can't take that chance. Car's out, anybody can drive it. So unfortunately, that 2.9 liter turbo all aluminum engine got shelved, even though it was a fully functioning program that was ready to be offered as to the public.
That was a V6.
V6 turbo.
All aluminum.
Yes. A little blurb that'll come up in one of my articles is that block of heads cast in Germany by our good friends at Porsche. Wow, so we could all been driving Porsches. And luckily I got the documentation and the paperwork for that program, so that would be an interesting article and I'll get a chance to go. Bill?
Hey Fred, sort of, other than the dash and the power steering, is there any about this car that's particularly not to
No. Well, this car was built in March of '87, so there were things that were not ready. So there's 87 is on this car. Minute details, like it has an 87 spare tire in it. It's changed the manufacturer on the spare tire. The valve cylinder caps are gray instead of black. They have the Fiero logo center caps on it. The wheels are hand cast. They're fairly rough compared to a production wheel. Another minor thing is the vehicle has Eagle GTs on it. As you know, the 88 GT plus 4 one. So this is very, very early. In the engine bay, there's a few minor inconsistencies of an 88. So in a nutshell, I guess I do have a stock 88 GT there. But it's a mule that never was intended to do in public hands. So it's a very fortunate thing car that crashed like it should.
Does this have stock brakes?
Yes. This was a test car. It was first year for the new braking system. So the car has indications that the calipers were on off it several times. All the grease markings on the fasteners indicating torque. Torque checks. They're all over them. All over the brakes, suspension, right on the list. And the rotors are pretty heavy. Now, the story behind this car, from the brother of the person who had this car, he was a Milford Proving Grounds engineer. And as part of their regimen at the proving grounds, they drive the cars home as personal transportation. And they write it off on the record as testing. They're actually just driving it home. Well, this car came home with the gentleman on Friday afternoon, and Saturday night went out and killed himself on the motorcycle. So here's the car sitting undocumented. I don't know where everything happened, and we had it. We thought it was crushed out of it. That's no research stop that I can look into. Car sat at the parents' house of this gentleman. So all October.
Is it true it was about 30 seconds away from being parted out?
Yes. I gotta thank Rodney Dickman telling blue in the face. The guy who had this car was gonna part it because he couldn't get a title for it. And he called Rodney Dickman because it has power steering on it. Rodney's known to be a power steering person. And Rodney talked to him for a few minutes and immediately gave him my phone. He said, "You need to talk to this guy? Probably should call him." So over the course of 3 days, I negotiated a purchase price. I could come up in a week after that point. Semi-car collector, armchair expert, likes to watch Barrett Jackson and Income and all that good stuff. Decided to tell everybody that, hey, you're getting ripped off by this guy, that's worth a little more. I'll bet you he's buying it to turn it. And he listed it on Craigslist. So when they lay it in public, 2 days before I was supposed to pick it up. But in the end, it all worked out. It cost me more money than the original purchase agreement. And the car is safe and sound, and looking forward to the Fiero shows next year. Good.
Do you have any discussions with the legal department after
Yes.
acquiring it?
Yes. Anything after 2008 is null and void. They have no claim to it because the former General Motors that we're all so fond of went bankrupt in 2008. The new corporation is a different entity. They have no claim on anything that was not in their possession at the time of bankruptcy. So when I bought the purple and white car, I was very concerned about that. I made a call to my friend at General Motors, who was a curator of the Heritage Center, and I said, listen, I'm about ready to dump a big handful of coin on this little car, and I don't want you guys coming back and say it's not yours. And he ran the numbers on it, and it came back as a car that was donated out of the system in 1989, which was the donation to the Chicago Science and Industry Museum. So I was in the clear on that. When the bankruptcy went down, he called me up and says, hey Fred, I got good news for you. You got a darn thing to worry about on any of them now. So if it was not an asset within their confines, it was no longer anything that they need to be concerned with. So this car here was lost. Lost for, they probably wrote it off a lot of years ago. Being a pilot build vehicle, they probably speculated that it got crushed or scrapped or thrown away or really destroyed. They just had a paperwork blunder or something like that. I'm sure that happened a lot. And unfortunately, there's a lot of farms in Michigan that are full of stuff like this. That are, in coming years, I think we're going to see a lot of it because these guys are getting to the age where stick stills or something.
Do you want to talk about driving lanes?
Yeah. Yep, I will. Here is a picture of the buck of the very first one made. This was in the styling studio. So this is the exact cluster that's in the car. The only difference is the arrangement of the little gauges down at the bottom were changed around. And I don't know the reason for that, but they changed them. And when they did change them, that's the way they stayed, and that's the way they used them in the Firebird, in the Trans Am. The unique thing that they did was they incorporated a lighted driving light switch into the dash. And this car right here has factory driving lights in the grill. It has some very elaborate brackets that they hang on and some very nice driving lights. They look GM. I've seen them before, but I haven't put my finger on what car they used them on. But they're full driving lights up there in the opening of the grill. Unfortunately, at the point where I obtained this car, it was a complete surprise to me. I didn't plan on it. So basically what I had to do is get the car home, get stuff in the garage where it's safe. And it's under cover right now. And I haven't seen much of it, to be honest myself. And these are really the only two pictures I have of the car to present to anybody, because that's all I had a chance to get. And now with the daylight savings time, it's just too dark to yank it out of the garage, but I think I can. So this is the buck, and future Fieros would have had a factory driving light as an option. You can see in the corner down there a little bit of the cluster, or the HPC, AC, or something. Oh, that's a small picture. Anyway, blowing that up. That's going to be blurred. Yeah, that sucks. These were pictures of the actual 90. There we go.
There we go.
That's good enough. Okay, here's our 90 Fiero, our beloved 90 Fiero. I'm very disappointed that GM has not given me the opportunity to bring that kid guy that really belongs there. So write letters for me. But here's your gauge cluster. The one that I have in that red 88 is identical to this. It is exactly that. And it's really neat to have the opportunity to have it.
The upper right?
Yes, that would be your dash cam. And then below is your defroster. Now with the trunk release, they were going to do what all Pontiacs usually have. They had it under the driver's door pull. Bonnevilles have the trunk release button and the door panel underneath the handle pull. And that's where the next generation of Cherry would have had it. So unfortunately, my car doesn't have the new door panels. The 90 Fiero has half the new door panels. You notice there's no character line up there, it's all smooth. You know, it was going to be production. What they didn't do is this down here was going to be an ABS molded panel that would have been snapped onto the front of the panel. And I think it probably had a couple holes in that pocket somewhere, but they never actually incorporated the trunk release up into it.
What's the two extra switches in the center of the
Yeah,
console?
this is the 90 prototype Fiero. As you, I don't know if anybody's familiar with it. I didn't bring pictures, but the rear deck on the car is a double clamshell. It was made so that you could open the trunk without opening the engine bay. So these two switches here, one's for the lower trunk and one is for the engine bay. That was just done to suffice what they needed at that time for the running prototype. That wouldn't have been production. Right here is the 92 Fiero Badge. That would have been it. Very Grand Prix-ish. That is the kid, and that would have been really cool.
Yeah.
1992 would also brought a new frame that would have designated the P2 designation. That would have been a second generation Fiero. The 89, 90, 91, 92 Fieros. Or 91s would have still been generation 1, so it was basically an 88 chassis, slightly modified. But this car was aimed to eliminate the gas tank in the center tunnel that would have been behind the driver's seats between the engine bay and the passenger compartment. And it eliminated the big hump that we're so used to.
Fred,
Yes.
wouldn't it have an airbag on the right side? of the
Yes.
head?
Yes, the car would have been fully airbagged.
Fred,
Yes.
we did have a question online. Someone asked, and this is semi-related since we just talked airbags, is there any way to retrofit airbags into an existing Fiero?
I don't know. Where there's a will, there's a way. It'd be a matter of retrofitting a airbag steering column into a Fiero.
It's the sensors though, that shoot it off.
Right.
Yeah.
That would be,
That's where the creativity would come into mind, just like doing an engine. Where there's a will, there's a way. That's technology. That's nothing new. It's not rocket science. It's just a matter of figuring out what's required to make it work. It's just like ABS on a Fiero. If somebody put their mind to it, you could probably do it with a little bit of creativity, but nobody's done it.
What about power steering?
That too. We got power steering cars. A lot of there's some 3800s out there that would use the Firebird rack, the hydraulic rack, and we have a 3800 supercharged engine that has a power steering pump on it, so they just run the power steering whenever they power up to the rack. Right?
On this particular prototype dash, Jeff and I were talking, are those buttons used for anything up there, or is that?
Yeah. On a clean photo, I don't know why it came out blurry. They had like the hazard flashers up there, road lights, quick release, things like that. There were some other, this car would have had a trip computer on it. Functions like to that sense.
And then is that, it kind of briefly looked just to the left of the steering wheel, is that the new door frame or newer door skin you're
Well, this would
referring
have been
to?
for the 92 Fiero. So it would have been a completely different panel. If you look, the door shape's a little different too. It's like I said, that would have been a new generation Fiero. So the frame would have been different. Frame components would have been different.
Would it have been a longer frame, maybe with the
Possibly.
dash?
I don't have any specs on it. But the biggest thing that they were after was crash safety. They were trying to address some of the inconsistencies of the early car, which would have definitely included a lot heavier doors. That was one of the weaknesses of our current Fieros, is the door protection. The second thing was eliminating that huge pump, because there were several cases where it was documented that the occupant was pinned between the crumpled door and that center console, crushing their pelvis and so forth. So they were trying to get away from that, where that center console is all soft, so if you were side impacted, that would break off and possibly save somebody's life or seriously. So they were looking forward to safety, and especially in front and rear impacts. And they were also looking at the storage situation, bigger trunk.
Fred, another question from online is, was the prototype 92 dash a single unit connecting to the center console or modular like the 84 to 88?
That looks like it's one piece. The IP is part of the dash. Is that the question? Is that?
I think so. They haven't responded back, so.
Okay, because
Yeah, talking about the 90.
No, he was talking about this one, the 92.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's no seam in the plastic around the IP.
What engine was discovered?
There's a lot of speculation. They wanted the quad 4 really bad, and they couldn't get it. Oldsmobile didn't want them to have it. So, in that point, they were still pushing the Super Duties. They were trying really hard to make a streetable Super Duty, and that's where the overhead cam Super Duty came from. It was extremely variable. They were trying very hard to get that overhead cam Super Duty as a production for future Fieros, which would have been a detuned version. There's also some documentation and indication that they're building a turbocharged V6 that had a 3-valve intake, or 3-valve head design, which was 2 small valves for intake, 1 large valve for exhaust. And there's a couple of those engines that exist. I've actually had a chance to see one. I have not obtained it. It would have been a very small displacement turbocharger, and the displacement on the V6 would have been somewhere in the area of 3.4 liters. And it was projected at approximately 250 horsepower. But that was all concept still there, nothing concrete on what they were going to do with it. But they were definitely looking forward to more updated powertrains. Another thing, someone asked what engine would have been in an 89 Fiero. We definitely would have went to a 4-speed auto in 89. We would have the 440 P4. More questions? Jeff?
Fred, is there any outside renderings of the 92 Fiero? I just don't think I've ever seen.
I have one picture and I didn't bring it with.
Okay, I'd like to see that sometime.
It is along the lines of our 90 Fiero, but it gives a little more, I would call it Acura NSX-ish look. A little lower, a little more cab forward design, longer back end. I have one picture. I printed it in a Fiero Focus, but I couldn't tell you. Maybe it was one of the presentations I did. I did present that picture at one point. Silver. Here's that ever elusive factory power steering. This is a unit that Mr. Vargas acquired for me. So currently I have 4. I'm lucky enough to have the first version, which is on the real Indy Pace car. The car has a 15-to-1 rack ratio, so it's very, very quick. It's almost uncomfortable, to be honest with you, because it turns so quick. This unit here, does anybody know what your power steering was supposed to come out on the Fiero? Very first year you were intending on putting it on? With the model year 86. So there were a handful of the earlier racks, the one-piece aluminum racks that have power head for power steering molded in with the rest of the rack. And they were very crude, they were rough cast. And this one that Paul obtained for me is one of those 87 racks. And on my fastback wide body ends of that car has the early rack in that also. The big difference between the first one is all the individual components. The reservoir, there's a pump right here, and the controller are individual components, literally zip tied to the bottom of the spare tire carrier. So they didn't have the modular unit completed at that time. And this 87 racks were 15-to-1 rack ratio. And the 88 pilot car that I just got has the full 88 rack, which essentially the tube assembly for the rack is the same as the manual steering. The difference was they just pinned on the power head on the power steering. So it was made modular, so they only had one rack assembly to depend on which head was going to be applied to that particular vehicle. All right,
You said that's an 87?
this particular assembly is a pilot build front cradle assembly for an 88
Oh, okay.
that I obtained from a guy right here in Chicago. And I bolted the power steering on it as a display. But that rack that is on there is of the earlier design.
Fred, 2 questions from online.
What?
One, was the 15-to-1 constant or variable at highway speed?
That it is variable through the controller. The controller had a stepped logarithm, as you would say, depending on vehicle speed. It gave 100% power steering up to 10 miles per hour. And then it varied down to 15% at 55 miles. But it was a step type thing. It wasn't a true variable. There was 100%. I think the next step was 80%, 65%, and then the lower the highway speeds. The problem they had with development of this power steering system was the inconsistencies between the steps. They had a distinct condition where you're coming down the highway at 55 mile an hour, hit an off ramp, start easing into your turn, and you get low enough speed where you pick up to the next notch, and all of a sudden you have more or less steering effort for the same curve. And people have overturned the steering and ditched them. They did it several times in testing. with the tests. So that was one of the reasons why the power steering didn't get used on the Fiero for production purposes. They were trying to figure out at the time with the current technology, with the electronics available, how to smooth that transition out in those certain conditions.
And the other question was, how far out did they do their model changes? 2 years, 3 years? I think this is probably more in relation to the 92 you were showing.
Yeah, the 92 Fiero was still in concept. They had basic ideas, basic specifications that they were shooting for, recommended changes and so on and so forth. But I think the only thing that really got done was an exterior clay model as far as anything permanent. And that's the picture I have of the clay. But other than that, I have not found anything else.
So is there gonna be a car show in August with 6 Fiero prototypes out?
Yeah, you never know. Gotta find them first, right? Yep, we're
Which-
2 up on GM.
What's that one?
That right there is the 89 Coupe. Yeah, I hear a lot of negative about